As you said, my name is Are Tveit. I come from a small town in Norway called Haugesund, which, as well as any other city in Norway, is very depending on oil and gas industry. And what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today is not so much about my company, but the reason why I am in Las Palmas. And what I think, I don't have a crystal ball, but I have some strong opinions. You're probably not going to agree with all of them, but I think I can, based on some of the cities and the development in Norway, I can predict a little bit what's going to happen in the future for Las Palmas. And I want to share the enthusiasm with you as well. And, maybe some of you see the potential to get on board. So I'm gonna start with a little bit of introduction about the company. The company name is Otech. It's started in 2005 by myself and my father. I am today the chairman and CEO of the company. My father is still in the background. He had approximately 30 years of offshore diving experience in the North Sea when we started the company. I was sort of a rookie. I had no vast experience in the offshore diving industry where he came from, but together we decided to form the company, which today is Otech. What we basically discovered was that in Norway you have two different kind of businesses. You have the oil rigs which are operating offshore, and then the same as your car, every 5 years you need to take it to the workshop, fix it, and somebody is going to tell you if it's approved or not. It's same like a EU control of your car. And this is what they have to do with the rigs as well. So it's quite a big market. The only problem was in Norway at the time, when we started the company, there was not a lot of companies specializing in this. So when the rig was offshore, there was a lot of big companies suitable for taking care of whatever they need. When they go inshore or take the rig to the quayside for repairs, there was not a lot of subsea specialist companies. So basically that's how the company was started. And what we do is we do a lot of inspections, repair, maintenance, and what we call class renewals, which is every 2.5 years or every 5 years for a drilling rig. So it's a continuous operation which happens throughout the lifespan of the rig. And in the beginning we only did diving operations, only the subsea part of the rig. But as the company developed, we are now doing a lot of engineering for our clients, developing special solutions, and have extended the work scope quite a bit. Let's see. So let's jump to the important part. Why Las Palmas? Well, for me it's very easy when you look at this map, because Las Palmas is the little red dot exactly in the middle of the map. So this is basically the center of the world as far as I'm looking at it. You may see it differently, but all my clients, everybody, all the rig companies, everybody, the ship owners, everybody knows Las Palmas. It's a famous port for doing ship repair. Nobody has really gotten the eyes up for the possibilities in this port as far as rig repair. You're seeing small development now, but it's something that takes a while to grow. But if you look at the map, the strategic position, well, in my opinion, you have to look very good to find a better one. And also you are very close to Africa, but you are still in Europe, which is a huge advantage if you want to do business. there's a lot of oil and gas all around us, and probably within the next year they are going to find oil and gas very close to these islands, which will again probably I have a picture of Stavanger as well later in my presentation. So I'm going to tell a little bit about this city, which is very important for Norway. But in my opinion, the same thing is going to happen in Las Palmas. And I know as a Norwegian in Norway, all the money, he can probably arrest me, but more or less all the money in Norway comes from oil and gas. So if you're a baker, your bread is sold to a guy who's working in an oil and gas company. If you sell a car, the guy who buys it works in an oil rig. If you buy a copy paper, well, then this copy paper is delivered to an oil and gas company. Everything, there's millions of small suppliers in Norway as well, but they all have one thing in common. At the top of the pyramid, there is an oil and gas company. Of course, we have salmon as well, which is the second biggest industry in Norway, but that's really on the side. And if you're a supplier, you are not chasing the salmon industry because they don't pay. The oil and gas companies, they have a tradition for paying for the services you give. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but if you see the possibilities and the opportunities, there's a lot of business to be made of this kind of industry. And in the next year, they are going to start some exploration here, close to the islands, and this will generate, more and more companies will come here, set up offices, and basically, as far as the Las Palmas as a location, it's perfect for anyone doing exploration activities. For instance, everybody knows Africa. I guess some of you go there from time to time to do business as well. And I've been to Africa quite a few times, visiting various rigs and doing research and this kind of stuff. The problem is always in Africa, logistics and this kind of activities. It's very, very difficult. And let's say you have a rig, you want to do maintenance, you have to bring 200 people from Norway to facilitate your rig. You will have a problem in Nigeria to get them safely to the hotel, back and from, all the logistics around. Las Palmas is amazing. In this sense, if you bring a rig here, you have fantastic amount of hotels, facilities to accommodate your personnel which are coming here, and all the surroundings with the logistics. Is a famous port for bringing goods to and from, and everything is working very well. So it's easy to take your rig here, and a lot of my clients prefer to take the rig, if they have to do maintenance, take it from Africa to Las Palmas and then take it back again when they are finished. So that's one of the, at least from my side, one of the very important things to why we chose this location. Okay. I'm not going to talk too much about Stavanger, because this gentleman, he probably knows better than me, also more the numbers and everything. I live on the opposite side of the fjord, but basically what happened in Stavanger was it's today called the oil and gas capital of Norway. And basically one morning in, I don't know, I think it was in 1967, yeah, the chief of Esso, he was driving around looking for a place to have an offshore base. The first drilling rig was going to start drilling in the North Sea, and this was an American, and he chose Stavanger. So basically from that day, this city was going to change quite a lot. And before this man's arrival, it was the biggest factory, I think, was a tin can factory, where there was approximately 60,000 inhabitants. Today, in 2013, in Stavanger there is 300,000 or more than 300,000. And at any given time there is approximately 650,000 people, including guest workers in this region. And it's basically all related to oil and gas. It's very, very important for the city, and it's one of the fastest growing cities in Norway. It's, and also, as far as prices, you can probably sign for this, but it's more expensive to live in Stavanger than in Oslo, which is the capital of Norway. So it gives you an idea of the importance of the city. What happened in Stavanger was that Norwegian people, they could only do one thing in 1960, and that was to fish. We were basically fishers and farmers. We had no knowledge of drilling offshore or oil and gas whatsoever. So what happened was the Americans, who had the knowledge and the expertise to do this, they basically moved to Stavanger and started teaching Norwegian people how to do this. So for us, of course, the Americans are very, very important, and without them, there will be no oil and gas exploration in Norway, probably. So what they did in Stavanger, they started an American school, they started building houses for all these American guest workers coming there and sort of developing everything, making it easy for the companies to establish there. And then after Esso came ConocoPhillips, then Shell, all of these oil companies started developing. And today it's well, it speaks for itself, but it's the most important city in Norway by far. So it tells you a little bit about the industry and who benefits from it. I'm not going to talk about the oil exploration because this is especially in the Canary Islands, people are a little bit scared of the environmental aspects and this kind of impact that any drilling may have on the island society and the tourism. But I can say one thing: the accident that happened in the Gulf of Mexico, the Deepwater Horizon accident, was a result of poor maintenance, basically. It's a kind of accident that cannot happen in Norway. And it's basically because of one thing. Norway has an extreme regime from the government to who is allowed to drill in Norway. It basically means more or less all of the rigs that are located in West Africa will not be approved to drill in Norway. So this is the way of the government in Norway has something they call Petroleumstilsynet, which does review of all the rigs that are giving a contract in the North Sea. So as far as for the environment, the government should, of course, look at Norway also, but develop some regulations which are besides maybe the ones that the European Union have, but also to regulate the activity. But from my perspective, I think what will affect Las Palmas the most in the next 5 years will be the actual drilling rigs, which are going to do the exploration. And this is sort of the second level of the pyramid. On the top you have the owner of the oil field and the company, which may be Repsol or... And what they do is they hire another company which owns a drilling rig. To bring this rig, of course, to a location where they believe there is oil. And they will drill and hopefully find oil. Today, with the seismic activity they do in the North Sea, they are not looking for oil anymore. when the drilling rig comes there, they already know there is oil. They just want to drill to see how big the or how big the field will be, if it's possible to. So, but basically, what will happen in Las Palmas is that there will be a lot of rigs coming here to do maintenance. Already today there is 1 or 2 rigs in the port, I believe. They're doing repairs, quite long yard stays here in Las Palmas, and from this activity, everybody will eventually benefit. You know, if this industry grows, for instance, here you have 2 pictures. You have the drilling rig, which is on top, and then below you have 2 quite big boats and a shipyard. These 2 boats are specifically designed to facilitate this rig. On board the rig you have 95 people maybe. On board each of these ships you have the same amount of crew. And for instance, one client of ours did a drilling job in Greenland, and the rig was followed by no less than 12 support vessels. You know, they need boats to put out anchors, they need boats to transport fuel to the rig back and forth, they need boats to transport people, they need food to go on board the rig, because this rig has a day rate of approximately $400,000 per day. So it's impossible for them to stop the operation and go and pick up their own food. You know? So basically the industry is created so that from this rig you have a lot of other things following. You know, you have a huge shipping industry which is only there to facilitate the rigs. And to put it easily, if the rig is coming to Las Palmas for maintenance, so will the boats that are following the rig. It's that simple. The rig has a 3-year contract. Okay, if they have to do maintenance, the boats have the same contract. They follow the rig. They go wherever it goes. And I was here last year doing a project on one of the rigs, which was one of the reasons why we are here today. The company was looking for a place to do the rig repair, and they chose on Las Palmas. And they started looking for subcontractors, and in the end, they basically asked us if we wanted to go to Las Palmas and do the job. So after this project, we decided to stay here and take advantage of the opportunities. But what happened with this drilling rig was that all the people that came here, they had approximately 200 people from different companies that had specialized equipment on board the rig. They came here and stayed in a hotel, a lot of them in this hotel. And then of course they were coming from Norway, all over Europe, and they were going to stay here for approximately 2 months. So what they did was they called the wife and they say, hey, my company is paying for the hotel room and all of this, so why don't you grab the kids and come here and we have vacation next weekend or something like this. So what happened was there was a lot of spin-off from the actual project, and I think basically everybody working in that project at some point had their family here and took a trip around the island. So I'm not saying this development is going to be bad for tourism. I think probably it's going to be the opposite in Stavanger as well. There's a lot of companies benefiting from company tours with the oil rig companies. They do a lot of activities. And the very important thing with these companies, they have a lot of money. That's basically if you are selling groceries, you have maybe 20% on your profits, at the end of the year, these companies have maybe 100%, maybe even more, you know, depending on the contract situation of the fleet. But at least the spin-off of this business is quite high for the community, and it creates a lot of jobs. So okay, so why did we choose Las Palmas? As I said, we did a project here, and I wasn't really aware of Las Palmas that much before last year. But staying here for 2 months convinced me quite well that this is a place where they only have to do a little bit of marketing and a little bit different. And also word of mouth takes approximately 5 years. So from the first rig did a repair in Las Palmas, it's going to take 5 years before all the other rig companies knows it's safe to go here. But even now, just in the past few months, Shell has established a base here in the port. There is another big company called Enesco, which is the British drilling company, or they are going to establish here. Also, the amount of vessels coming to Las Palmas is getting it's increasing a lot. Also in size. In the past, maybe it was smaller vessels. Now they are getting bigger and bigger, and Las Palmas has all the facilities to take care of this. So it's you don't really have to do anything here. You just have to go along for the ride. You know, you have big shipyard companies. I'm going to introduce some of them, which are my cooperation partners, and you get a chance to meet them. But here you have everything basically. So it's just a matter of when the market knows that it's not only this part of the business, or they don't only do ship repair at Las Palmas, but it's also a very good place to take a rig. So in the next 5 years, it's gonna be a great change. And I tried to find some numbers, but it's a little bit difficult because there's not a lot of history for this in Las Palmas. But basically, the average rig that comes here stays for a duration of 40 to 90 days. In this time, it leaves 10 million euros in the port of revenue. So it's quite high, the activity and the amount of days. And this is not calculated with the surrounding activities which I talked about. This is only in the port. Basically, the transactions that happens between the shipyard and the sub-suppliers which go on board the rig. I did not count the amount of hotel rooms for families coming here to visit and this kind of things. So, but it's a lot of money in a very short period of time, and it's expected in the next 5 years, as far as I can find some more or less accurate numbers, will be 8 to 10 rig projects. There will be a lot of rigs stopping in Las Palmas, but not all of them are gonna do maintenance. But if you have 10 rigs here and everyone leaves 10 million euros, you have quite a good business in the port of Las Palmas. Yep.
So did you say you think there'll be 8 to 10 rigs at any one time, or you think there's 8 to 10 rigs?
No, during 1 year.
During 1 year.
Yeah. So and as it's something that develops over time. One client has to do a project here, and then he's got to quit his job and start working in another oil company, and they are gonna bring the rig here. But it's something that's gonna develop over time. So, but in the next Next year, I don't know. Maybe you have some more accurate numbers, but I think as far as I can count, there is at least 6 rigs for 2014, which are going to do maintenance activities here in the port. To give you some worldwide numbers, or at least I split the type of rigs in different categories. You have, I don't know, some of you may see the big ship with the tower at the end of the pier. It left a few weeks ago. This is what we call a drill ship. It's basically a rig, but to make it easier to move around and also better in weather conditions and this kind of things, they design them as drill ships. Then you have another type of rig, which is the one that is in the port right now, which is a semi-submersible rig, and it's basically a floating installation, and it has propellers. It can move around wherever it wants to go. It's like it's also like a boat in some kind of way. It has two independent hulls which are submerged in the water, and then the final category of the floatable ones are what we call an FPSO, which is a floating production and storage facility, which normally is converted oil tanker or something like this, which carries with it the capability to also store the oil on board. So, and in total, you can see, I don't know how good you see in the back, but
I can't even see in the front, so I think you have to run through the numbers.
Okay. Well, basically in West Africa, you have approximately close to 100 of these in the belt of West Africa. Every 5 years they have to do maintenance. So the market within very close of this region is quite incredible. And the rest of the world, in total, you have available rigs, 823 worldwide. And as you can see, or you cannot see it, but I can, the bottom numbers, the market utilization of the rigs is at 95.3%, which means there is almost not one single rig available. And every week they are delivering new rigs, and so the market is growing quite well, and there is a struggle to find oil fast enough. So in this moment they have big campaigns going in Mauritania, and they are moving up along the coast of West Africa, and naturally they are gonna, I don't have a crystal ball, but they are gonna find oil definitely between Morocco and the Canary Islands, and it's a question of time, in my opinion. But as far as the worldwide numbers, the market for Las Palmas is worldwide, because I show you the map, you're in center of everything. Last year there was a new build rig in Korea going to Norway to drill a well. It stopped in Las Palmas for 14 days because it's on the way. You have to go around the world to get to Norway, and halfway in this route is Las Palmas. So they stop here. I have another client, they have a new rig in Korea going to Brazil. They stop in Las Palmas also. So if you are moving a rig to one continent from the other, logically Las Palmas is going to be in the center, wherever you go. If you're going to the Gulf of Mexico or Africa, so it's a very, very strategic place to do this kind of activity. And the clients will plan it so that they will do it when they arrive here. It's just a question of building some trust in the market to do these kind of big and advanced projects, and then business will come. I'm 100% sure. well, I talk a lot. So basically, what's gonna happen? Well, I'm gonna leave him to tell what Stavanger is like today, but in the next 10 years here in Las Palmas, due to this business, you're gonna see increased demand for everything. I mean, the oil companies, they develop graphic designs, videos, they have websites, they need everything. You know, they print a lot of marketing material, they buy a lot of paper, they use more paper than the Spanish government, you know. So whatever you are supplying, you're going to benefit from this industry. I can guarantee. And also there will be a need for expertise locally, which today there is a lot of knowledge towards the shipbuilding, ship repair, and competence towards the rig and offshore market is now growing quite rapidly. They have a lot of people in their organization which are getting a lot of knowledge from this industry, and the need for people to educate towards this industry is going to be big in the future. And of course, you will have suppliers that will separate, which have good values. They are going to grow big. They are maybe small today, but they are going to grow big, and you will have a lot of innovation. You know, things that are being developed, especially here in the Canary Islands. You have the same problem as in Norway. About 1 kilometer from the coastline, it goes. So it's impossible for me as a diving contractor. It's very sad because I cannot participate in this because you need to do it with the ROVs and rowboats and this. But here it's going to be the same. The subsea and deep water exploration is going to be very, very big in the Canary Islands. My prediction. So, as I wrote in the picture, we are on board, but I don't know about the rest of the industry. But at least from our company side and myself, I am 100% sure this is the place to be the next 10 years. And it's related to the oil and gas industry, which for me, of course, is very important. I also, care about what happens around me and what's going to happen in the future. One day, maybe I will have kids. I want them to have a good place to grow up. So that's why I move here. It's not so cold, and it's strategically a very, very good place to be. And before I end, I want to introduce my associates, which represent one of the shipyards in Las Palmas. So I guess maybe you have something to add to the presentation.
Yes, just to add on to what you're saying there, the picture for Las Palmas of the growth, the potential for the business and everything is tremendous. I've just come back from Zurich talking to one of the major companies. They say there's now 138 rigs working in West Africa. There's some ready stacked rigs there. That means they're there, but they're not working. They're waiting for a contract. Those rigs all need work. There's all types of rigs. There's what they call jackup rigs, which wasn't mentioned, but they work in shallower shelf water, which along the African coast there's a lot of. And they mentioned also that a lot of the older rigs that are working in the Gulf of Mexico, are going to move over to this region in the next few years. So in the next 5 years to 6 years, you're going to see the rig count double in West Africa. And all these rigs that are coming over have to meet European standards. So they're going to have to be upgraded, they're going to have to be modified, they're going to have to be inspected and certified, and they'll all need work. And this is subsea work, this is structural work on the derrick. All their subsea assemblies will need work, and this is a tremendous market for someone, and it should be here. Right now it goes to Netherlands, it goes to Aberdeen, it goes to Norway, it goes to the US. Some of it goes all the way across the world to Singapore and China. I mean, it's ridiculous. Right here is where it needs to be in the area. And we need to realize what the potential is. As you mentioned, you'll hear now what happened in Stavanger. I saw both Aberdeen and Stavanger grow up when they first started. Small fishing ports like this was when I came here. And I saw them grow into the Center for World Oilfield Activity, just like Houston, Texas is. Stavanger and Aberdeen match Houston in global importance. Singapore is another. These were small ports that based on commerce and fishing and everything that have grown to just an unimaginable scale of business and of economy and everything. We're looking here in the Canary Islands, we're looking at some 30% unemployment, a very grim picture. And you're looking in places like this where it virtually doesn't exist. People are coming from outside, new building, new growth. This is a tremendous potential for the Canary Islands.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'd just like to recognize both of you. You are Chuck Geiser, right? You're the oil field services advisor for Samakona, the shipyard, and we are also very pleased to have the marketing and sales director of the Samakona yards, Leandro Aguirre. Will you please repeat that because I pronounced it.
You'd have to stand up and say hello.
Hello everybody. Yes, I am Leandro Aguirre's husband, marketing director for Samakona Yards in the Canary Islands.
And we really appreciate your input and being here. So it's
No, thanks to you for inviting us, and it's a very pleasure for us to participate in a new way to do market and to share with all of you our experience, our work, and so thanks for you.
I think I'm pretty much finished. I hope you share some of my enthusiasm because I guess if you're here in the next 10 years, you're gonna see probably the same as me, and it's gonna be a different world in Las Palmas in 10 years. I'm pretty sure. So, questions? Yeah.
well, first of applause. Great.
Yeah, I do have a question. You both mentioned that the strategic aspect of the Canary Island port, and it seems to me that aspect, just the logistics aspect of it, is a huge benefit. So the only reason large companies aren't here is because there's no services, or is there another reason? Is it also cost prohibitive? Is our port very expensive?
No.
Is it more expensive than to park your rig out here and get it repaired as it is to go to the Netherlands, for example?
I think well, Las Palmas as a port is famous because it's if you are shipping goods from anywhere, your container ship will probably at some point during the transport around the world stop in Las Palmas, and the logistics here are. I didn't really study, but the prices should be equal to ports like Rotterdam, or it's not going to be any different. The reason why the rig companies, in my opinion, haven't really used this port is because of the knowledge that is possible to do it here. The head office of one of the biggest rig companies in the world is in Stavanger or in Aberdeen or in Houston, and the people that work in this office, they only go to Las Palmas to the airport, and once they get off the plane, they will go into a bus and they will end up in Haugesund again. So they don't really know Las Palmas, and then they go back to Norway after 2 weeks of vacation, and that's it. But now you have one rig doing service here, and in the past they had a big project the other year, Samakona in the rig called Are Tveit, which is the second time this company, Ocean Rig, visited Las Palmas. So this has to grow, you know. You have to move from one company to another and then say to them, hey, you have a rig in West Africa, why don't you go to Las Palmas? It's much easier, you know. So, but this takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And for now, Las Palmas has a little bit of, at least in Norway, from what I hear when I talk to my associates in Norway, it has a reputation of being a shipping port and a ship repair port, not rig repair. So this will develop slowly, and then in the next 5 to 10 years, and I guarantee you, if they strike oil close to the islands, well, everybody's gonna start bringing the rigs here to do drilling campaigns all over and then you will have a totally new aspect of the business.
I like that. And something that, just to answer your question, I spent most of my life along here, a lot of my life, professional life, working in West Africa, all around the world, but over 20 years in the West African coast and along here, so I know it intimately very well, and I work with the drilling companies, so I know how they think and what the situation is. When you have a drilling operation in any company, you have a huge local operation, which is locally supplied. Some services are available locally, but now, over the years, the geopolitical situation has gotten worse and worse. The security has gotten worse and worse in these countries, and now they're having second thoughts. You know, it was more convenient to have it close at hand in Nigeria, Ghana, wherever, Angola, but now it's so difficult to move there and so dangerous, and the services aren't there. The companies are having second thoughts. Now, we've kind of ignored that. We depended on fishing here. We were centered on ship repair, shipbuilding in northern Spain. We did a tremendous business in fishing industry, pelagic fishing and others. So the need wasn't there. There wasn't an urgency, and we ignored what was happening in Stavanger and Aberdeen and other places. And now we have a situation where companies are used to sending equipment for repair and refurbishing or getting new equipment from these centers and passing by the Canary Islands and taking them to the rigs. So we're a transit port and everything, but we haven't been tapping into this business. So now it's not just starting, it's been going now for almost 11 years. And there's been some serious work here. There's now 5 major companies that come here with regularity, and a lot of companies in transit, like ones from Korea. One new rig from the Netherlands came through just recently, a brand new rig, but we did a tremendous amount of work on it and finishing these projects. So there again, it's not just the repairs and everything, even the new rigs need work and finishing and everything, last minute things, and we can take care of those. You're right, the services weren't available before. We had a lot of services, but not geared towards this industry. Language was a problem, you know, so we didn't sell ourselves. Now in the last few years, last 5 years or so, we've been making a concerted effort. We go to oil shows around the world, and mainly Houston, Aberdeen, Stavanger, all this, and they say, well, where's the Canary Islands? Or if they knew that, they say, what's Samakona? What is it? What do you do? You know? Not a clue. Nothing. No idea what could be done in the port, what the size of the port. It's a deep water port. It had access to the rigs. And all this wasn't known, you know? So now these things are out there, using the social media, by the way. We're contacting a lot more companies. We're putting this into perspective. Putting it out on the table so they see it, and if they gear up their computer, they see Samakona Yards, they see other companies, and they start seeing the name, Port of Las Palmas or Canary Islands, and they're making the connection now that this is logistically the ideal place to be, weather-wise and everything. You don't have the corrosion problems and everything else, so this is a tremendous advantage for them, and it's convenient for them. And you're seeing that now by the number of rigs coming through here. For big repairs, 6, 8, 10 rigs a year. And now we've had, for the last year and up into this year, we've had 3 to 4 rigs present all the time in the islands. And so this is a good start. And with each rig comes all these supply vessels as well. And we're having to gear up our shipyard to take these larger supply vessels. And our shipyard and the other shipyard are full of these vessels. And we do lay-by work as well. So when you start looking at that, the scope for new business in Las Palmas is really amazing. We had industries here where we're closing down, shops were closing, people were out of jobs. Now these are coming back up again. We're rehiring, we're looking for people. And this is a specialized industry, and we're now training up Spanish professionals to do it, getting the language there that wasn't there before. And I think you'll see a lot of difference in the next 4 or 5 years. This will be a different picture if we take care and keep going. So, if that answers your question.
That was very nice. Thank you very much. I have a follow-up question. So you mentioned the language barrier. What other impediments do you think there are apart from the language barrier that sort of might slow the process down? Is it because you always hear about government and tourism scares of oil coming through here and having a disaster, things like that happening? Is there any other impediments?
Well, let's put it this way. In Stavanger and Aberdeen, the governments, especially the city governments, have been very supportive and very far-seeing, and they've made it very convenient to install new businesses there. So now I was recently in Aberdeen. You see major hotels going up, new industrial centers with huge companies coming there, 5 or 6 major companies coming into Aberdeen, adding to the ones that are already there. And they're having to bring people even from Spain over to work. I mean, it's language has been a big problem. And part of it is the political aspect. It's the industry is not understood. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I'd actually like to come back to that aspect maybe later on after we talk about Stavanger and everything. So you have a more complete picture. But if I can, I'll put that aspect off a little bit. You need government support. You need public support, understanding. We need to sell ourselves and what we can do. And also we need to understand who we're inviting in and what it means for the port, what risks there are, and how it affects our local business, our tourism, other businesses, which is definitely not unfavorably. It's very favorably from both the money aspect and environmental aspect. These companies, I don't think anybody's aware of what's spent by the oil companies each year on environmental issues and environmental training and protection. I've worked with major companies, Shell and Mobil, other companies, the Dresser Industries. These are huge companies that have developed a huge product in the North Sea and all over the world. And environmental was just right at the top of our list. Safety and environmental, it's a big issue. It's a big thing. So because we're involved in an industry where there's a lot of potential for hazard, and sometimes things happen. People assume it happens every day, which is not the case. As you'll hear about Stavanger and take a trip to either place, Aberdeen, Stavanger, those places, beautiful beaches, the fjords, everything. I don't see oil slicks out there. I don't see pollution, anything like this. I see more pollution in almost any major city around the world, just from what comes out of the city. So my concern is more there, that more effort is being taken by the oil industry and the shipping industry, by the way, to contain these things and to prevent these spills. Even spills from the drainage from the platform is collected and processed. These are standards that were started in Norway and been carried through. If we use technology, if we have proper control, proper oversight, this is a good thing for the Canaries.
Thank you.
Well, as we're talking about the possibilities on short or medium term of possibilities of big companies coming here to Las Palmas to establish their, but I can tell about an actual success of, I'm a local engineer and I'm working for Kinross. It's a Canadian gold mining company that established they're based in Las Palmas like 2.5 years ago to control all their operations in Africa. And I can tell myself all the benefits that this company has been provided to the island of being here, apart from the business, all the families living here, almost every day I discover a new way they are benefits the island with and they are very happy here. And last year in the Gran Canaria Business Week, we have a meeting talking about the taxes. So in Canary Island, if you follow some requirements, you can enjoy like a 5% taxes permanently here using the SEC special Canary. So there are lots of things here that can use all these big companies to establish themselves here. And I am an example of a local engineer that I've been hired by them for. So I'm talking about when you mentioned about the island has a mile away from the island you have like a deep ocean. There is a huge project, international project here to build a platform to study the deep ocean from the island. Because nowadays if you want to study the deep ocean, you need to build a platform in the middle of the ocean. So in logistic point of view, it's very hard. But they are going to build a platform 1 mile away from the island with, they will have telecommunications, food, fuel, everything 1 mile out of the island, and they will build a special platform here to attract all the scientists in the world to study the deep ocean from here. So there are a lot of projects, and I can tell about one success one, and I'm sure it will be lots of examples in the coming years.
Is that Plocan?
Plocan, yes.
Just to add a little bit of information, the container shipping industry here has been growing for years. But
yes.
The last 6 months we've had Maersk Sea Lines is threatening to pull out. One of the other big lines is threatening to pull out, and that's purely because it's so expensive here to move a container. It costs over €100 to process a container here. The new ports in Algeciras and in Portugal, we're talking between 40 and 70 euros. So the port here is in serious danger of losing a lot of what it's relied on until now, which is the container moving.
I think in many ways that's going to be addressed by a new upcoming industry.
Well, it's just
the oil industry has a tendency to pay over the odds compared with the container industry, I would suggest.
They are getting their fishing back next year. The Moroccans have opened up
We do need to make it attractive, and exactly, we had that same issue on fuel just a few years back, and some of the fuel costs were lowered and everything, some of the port costs were lowered, but our major business in the port is containers and everything, and one of the major businesses, and if you overtax that, if you make it too costly, then the company's going to look for alternatives. We're talking about highly competitive businesses with low profit margins, so they don't have, like the oil companies have a big profit margin. These companies don't, and profitability or failure of the company itself, it may hinge on some of these costs. So companies like Maersk and those are looking after themselves, and our local politicians need to realize this, or the politicians in the central government, that if you want industry, if you want to attract things and take advantage of our global position, then you have to be a bit far-seeing, about far-thinking, and make it attractive to create an environment that's going to bring industry here and make our economy start to work, start to move. And if you don't, then you have high taxes but lower industrial base, so you get less revenue. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. I don't know what the problem is, but they don't, apparently you don't see this in political courses in university or something. I don't know, they don't teach this. It doesn't make good economic sense to tax something out of existence.
I'm Norwegian, so I know a lot about taxes. We have the highest taxes in the world, I believe. At least for whatever you need to pay taxes in Norway. That's yep.
Hi, I've got the English newspaper here. I get a lot of different sides of arguments, especially big controversial arguments like oil. I personally believe Gran Canaria, the Canary Islands, amazing tricontinental gateway. I'm sold, was years ago. I love this place. I want it to continue. I also believe, as do you, that the oil is out there. I don't believe that oil companies spend the amount of money they need for exploration unless they're pretty sure they're going to find something. So I have an interesting quandary about how I communicate what happens in the world around me to the 100,000 odd foreign residents who live on this island and anyone else who's learning English here on the island. Do I say I'm pro this, anti this? Do I just report the facts as given to me by PR agencies or other media? So I suppose, I'm wondering, did you have, I suppose in the 60s and 70s there wasn't so much of a big problem about oil coming to town. It was just seen as a moneymaker, right? Canary Islands, essentially, people here are scared because our primary economic generator is tourism. And maybe they're not looking beyond that because that's what they know. That's what they know to work. This is here. And and there's obviously a rising, forever rising tide of people who don't want to see the environment harmed. And I also fully believe that people who are in high-risk industries have a tendency to exponentially invest a hell of a lot more in making sure those things don't happen. So what I wonder is, have you any thoughts on how you can communicate to literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, that they may be missing an opportunity if they don't plug into the fact that oil's coming regardless of whether or not they like it. Our politicians are getting political purchase right now by saying, well, Canary Islands are not going to get any better. If you find oil, Spain, Repsol owns it. Spain gets the taxes. The Canary Islands, but of course, your message is very different. This is a very interesting message to me because people here locally on the ground are going to benefit.
Yep.
So how do you? What's the lineage of that message? How do you say, guys, yes, we agree with the environmental potential, but the fact is, you need to plug into making sure that this is going to be all right and you're going to benefit from it. You're not going to be unemployed. How do you craft that message?
For me, it's very easy because I'm Norwegian, and if you do, it's my opinion, but if you do some study, in Norway we have one of the cleanest fjords in the world. The water you can take the tap water, drink it. Everything in Norway, in my opinion, is well functioning. Of course, we are complaining about a lot of things, but the major oil company, which is Statoil, has basically been in front of more or less all the innovation that comes from, now we have ballast treatment system, which basically means the water that these rigs take into the rig is purified before they let it out. So let's say my rig goes to Nigeria and it takes on board water in the tanks, and then it comes to Las Palmas. This treatment plant would make sure that this water is purified before it's released in the port here. So basically all the innovation that happens in Norway is because these companies have a lot of money and they are investing. Statoil has a huge department with people only doing engineering and creative projects. They are doing a lot of wind farm projects. They are supporting all the community, developing. So, and they have the possibility because they earn a lot of money from the oil and gas. And as he said, they have a tremendous budget for environment. Much more than the guy who owns the fishing boat, and it's the only boat he has. He wants this boat to make as much money as possible, but he doesn't want to spend anything on maintenance. In Norway, the mentality is different, and also the government is making sure that all the companies, have this philosophy. So it's a cooperation between the politicians, of course, have to do something also, and then the companies themselves has to be aware, and communicate. But
The irony
for
is, of course, the environmentalism on these islands could significantly benefit
exactly,
from the oil industry.
right, exactly.
But let me add something. This is a bit different markets. One market is the rig repair markets, and the oil extractor market out of the Canary Island. And all the Canarians knows that the rigs coming to Las Palmas are clean. They are not working here. The possible extraction of Repsol in front of Otech is peanuts of this market. And the big market is out of here, and it's not a risk for us because they are working in West Africa, and they will work in West Africa. So it's different. And all the Canadians knows that the rig repairs is a good business for everybody. Rig repair, non-extractor.
You've got a serious PR problem that I'm not sure Canarians do realise.
Yeah,
All they see
yeah,
is the rig and they start to panic.
We
You've got to separate yourself from the
extraction. That is true. It's true. The journalists of the Canarians, journalists are doing a good effort in separating. It's not the same. It's the same. We are working in West Africa, exploring, but we prepare is the business for us. Clean. This is not a risk for the tourist. Never. It's like a city.
I agree with what you're saying. I think the oil companies, like most industries that have these kind of problems, have done very poor PR effort in explaining themselves and presenting themselves to the general public. And it's kind of run roughshod over and assume the general public knows these things, which they don't. And you have politicians and the green factions on one side using emotion and very controversial things and pointing out disasters and this thing and that thing. And so everybody's scared to death that this is going to destroy tourism. So to me, how do you present it? I would present the facts. You can't argue with opposed. Everybody has an opinion. We're arguing one side or the other.
Since you have my interest is community building, so show Stavanger to take advantage.
Show Stavanger, show Aberdeen, what's been done commercially, what's been done in the economy, the cleanliness of the beaches, lack of pollution, the environment, where it doesn't, it's not such an immediate danger. People have a picture, if you drill a well, oil is spewing out everywhere the entire time you're drilling. That's simply not true. It doesn't happen.
We have here, I think, under my opinion, we have here like a bigger problem. It's not that the people have not been well communicated about. I think the problem is on top of the people. There is a battle between politicians. So we have the industrial minister. He's a Canarian guy. He's the guy in head of industry in Spain. And then we have
Minister of Industry, Energy and Tourism.
and tourism.
That's true. You have that. You have this political.
And then we have the president of Canadian government. And this guy, both guys have been enemies in politicians from the beginning of the times. So the thing is, this guy, the president of the government, have been always trying to block, to stop anything that this guy is trying to do, even if it's good or bad.
With no hope of winning the argument anyway.
Yeah. So the thing is, this guy is manipulating the information always in order to make the people in Canary Island to be in opposite of this guy. So even if we try to communicate, we got to inject into the people the good things about that. Probably these guys will manipulate this information to have arguments to their battle. So this is the big problem here, that there is a battle between two guys, and
that's precisely why you need more correct information out there, more accurate information. Because when you have emotion and you have two political giants fighting each other. They're going to use every trick in the book to make the other one look bad. But it's not doing
This
us
is how it
any
works
good.
here, whereas in Norway, I think it's less of a problem.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah, that's more.
But I remember in Norway, when Norway was first started, and I was first out in the activist field and those, there was a lot of concern about this, the fjord's gonna turn black and everything, and it's gonna, this is a terrible thing, it's a very unsafe way to work, everything's gonna, and over the years, that's been seen not to be true. But we don't present this to the general public. The general public is very poorly informed.
But of course, also in Norway in 1980 something, there was a rig similar to the Deepwater Horizon. For I think 3.5 weeks, was just pouring out oil in the North Sea as well in Norway. So it's not that it hasn't happened. The thing is that the technology, to prevent it from happening again, the learning process. So today, you have the possibility. The only difference is that, for instance, in the Gulf of Mexico, they didn't have this requirement for the BOP, which we call it, which is a blowout prevention valve. They didn't have this requirement to the company. So they show up with a rig that is not capable of, and as a result, they have so you need to have in place the correct things to regulate the business, but as he said, it's a different. The exploration is one part, and then you have the repair on the other side. But in my opinion, the Norwegian continental shelf offshore, it's I don't know. Has there been any fatalities of the 60,000 workers offshore in the past 5-10 years? No. Not offshore in Norway, you basically don't have accidents, because the safety focus is tremendous. So what?
I wonder at the idea of comparing Norwegian legislation and safety practices to Spanish and then Canarian safety practices. Basically they will say, who's holding the gun?
Yeah.
Who is it who's actually has control? Is it Europe? Is it Brussels? Is it Norwegian know-how? Is it Canarian government? This is part of the issue. Who is going to ensure that we're as clean as Norway, if not better? We've got the world's first carbon neutral island, over in El Hierro. They're not actually carbon neutral, but they're capable. They're the first one capable of it. So there's a real feeling like, we've moved towards clean. And will the oil industry endanger that? Will it enhance it? And I think that's probably my message to you guys, is there really has to be a real look at how we tell people this might actually help your local situation.
In my opinion, I think they will improve, the safety of you as a worker. For instance, the companies, I guess you are familiar, at least I am, the companies, even to become a supplier, to be able to give my services to one of these companies, I have to follow a lot of, I have to go through maybe a qualification process of many months. And they are ensuring that I train my people the correct way. They are using helmet, gloves, all this, and I protect the environment, all of this. So it's gonna improve the other suppliers as well, because it's basically, from my point of view, it's going to benefit the society in more than just a financial way.
I'm interested in where the money goes. You were saying that $10 million euro, per rig. You would think a good PR thing would be to show the people, okay, here's that $10 million, and here's how it funneled into the Canary Islands.
Absolutely.
In the same way as tourism money is supposed to be funneling into the Canary Islands, but most of us know the large multinationals actually see that, control it, take it at origin. The local businesses don't really see it, but maybe that's going to be different with the oil industry.
I think you have to show how it does affect the local industries. How much goes to local shops, hotels, taxis, this sort of thing, how much actually goes into the economy, salaries, you know?
It's being paid to the port, right?
Yeah,
It's
I
being- and so the port is the Canary Islands government, correct?
If we do a repair, say we do a repair on the rig, we're gonna make a proportion for the, as a company doing the repair. And the government makes from taxes and licensing and things like this. But not the entire 10 million is going to Madrid or anything else. That's not the case. I mean, it's going into different areas.
I believe the wives of Kinross arrived here the first year and were selecting houses around the Telde and Melanera area on the sort of northeast coast. And we're paying sort of through the nose, 2,000-3,000 euros more than they needed to a month until they became savvy a year later and then moved elsewhere. And you know,
It was funny because they told me that the first time they came here, there were 3 or 4 of them, and they were driving out of the whole island looking for location and these kind of things, and they were driving a very, very, very expensive car. You know, there was actually they had a car. They are only like 100 models in the world, something like that. So they were like, they assumed they had made a mistake, that they were like screaming, "We are rich."
Yeah.
Okay, you know, trick us, you know, because we are very rich. So then they find out that because they came from Canada. So even if the price was very high under the Canary Island perspective, for them was cheap because they came from Canada. So at the beginning, they was horrible. I mean, they were paying like four times the normal price here.
So I mean, again, I think that the proprietors of those properties have probably done the whole of the Canary Islands a disservice, because there's a whole bunch of families who work for Kinross now who say you can't trust the Canarians. And so, do you know what I mean? So there's a responsibility of people who live in the Canary Islands, people who are from the Canary Islands, to actually deal cleanly and well with these new companies that are going. And the fact is there's a mistrust. We have a tendency to look at you guys like someone who's putting a cigarette in the hands of a pretty girl. Right? We see you as from Philip Morris, or you know, as general members of the public. So constant. The only reason that we're talking to you at all is because you seem to be quite friendly guys. You seem to be quite open with us. We're lucky enough to be sat in a room with you, but the majority of people out there aren't going to have that luck.
I think we should applaud our